Indiana. Is it day 7, I believe, of the Richard Allen trial here, who has been charged with murdering Abby and Libby. It is October 25th, a Friday, 2024, and it is lunchtime. Time for another lunch live just to fill you in on what's going on in court, and then I'll head back in. So, we have only had one witness thus far, and this witness is actually a firearms expert. Her name is Melissa Oberg. Let me make sure I got that right, actually. Yeah, Melissa Oberg. She has short brunette hair. Well, not short, excuse me, medium length. Like, it's about like just below her shoulders. She has glasses. She's very educated. They spend a very long time on her background, more than ever anyone, even more. Oh, they've spent a longer time going over her background than they even did the pathologist, Dr. Kaur. And I think we all know why, because she's essentially going to be studying this, I think we can all assume, firearm, the unspent bullet, and maybe connecting it to Richard Allen's gun. Am I right? I think we all know that that's likely why she's on the stand. And again, I think it also shows why on cross-exam, the defense is always trying to say this unspent bullet wasn't handled properly or isn't a thing, because Melissa Oberg is going to bring her expertise. So I won't go over her entire background right now. Again, that will be for tonight. There were some interesting aspects to her background. She essentially, though, did work for the Indiana State Police. She left recently in 2023, but she was with them from 2006 to 2023 as a forensic firearms examiner. She has a bachelor's of science in chemistry, and she has a master's in science as well, although I didn't get the exact degree. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dom's mom. I really appreciate it. So on and on and on about her background, the research, the studies. She went into also, I'll just say, some really interesting areas of how they scientifically assess on these different tool markings on objects. She sort of explained that, let's see if I can find it actually. There's characteristics, there's sub characteristics, and then there are individual characteristics. Individual characteristics being the most defined of characteristics, showing that like in manufacturing and in also just like the use of the gun, how things on a very microscopic level. And she was showing us pictures on the screen that were like 60 times 60, what do we call that, 60 times the original size in a microscope, how there can be little just markings from the gun, and we're referring to bullets now, from a gun, from even an unspent round as it's ejected, on and on and on. She explained how she tests, on and on and on and on. I'll talk about it. Is very interesting, so again, I will talk about it tonight. But she then explains that she was given in February of 2017. And this is interesting. Let me just preface this with, she never states, she's an expert witness, right? She is given stuff to test. She never states, I was given a bullet from a crime scene. She never states, I was given a gun from Richard Allen's house. That's never said. In fact, she also talks about receiving in 2017 like wet guns, like guns that were wet and damaged that had been seized. It makes me wonder if those were discovered in Deer Creek, right? My point is, my brain and everyone else's brain in there is having to make a lot of assumptions, and perhaps we will learn a lot more after lunch, and it will be said, this gun was seized from Richard Allen's house. This bullet was found at the crime scene, right? So that could happen after lunch. But as of right now, it's not happening, but we can certainly assume and assess with the evidence given to us. And she explains that she was given what she labels as item 16. She was given this on February 17th, 2017. So I'm going to assume that this bullet that she was given, this ammunition she was given, was the bullet that was found at the crime scene. She says that it was, it's item number 16, a Winchester 40 Smith & Wesson cartridge. A Winchester 40 Smith & Wesson cartridge, Smith & Wesson. So she's also given other items back then. She's given a Glock Model 22, and she's given a magazine containing 15 federal 40 caliber Smith & Wesson cartridges. She's given a bunch of other things. All of this was received on February 17th. She's actually has a photo that shows a microscopic close-up of item 16, this Smith & Wesson, and shows 3 ejector marks circled. And actually, I'm going to show you guys this. So that was a microscopic image, and she circled the 3 ejector marks that she discovered on item 16. Okay. So then I'm just going to give you guys this. Skipping a lot. I won't skip anything tonight. I'll give you all your details tonight. Then she explains, though, I wanted to say this, she receives a bunch of guns also in 2017 that she was sent that had been seized, and they had all been in water. They were unidentified firearms. She had to dry them off a bit, do some, like, make sure they didn't rust. And so with all the guns she'd been given in 2017, she tested them all, and none of them fit or could have been used with item 16. Again, I'm assuming the item 16 was the cartridge found at the crime scene. So none of that worked. But then the next jump where she's given more items is not until October 14th, 2022. Now, to remind all of you, October 14th, 2022 was actually when they had a search warrant on Richard Allen's house. They interviewed him October 13th, 2022. The very next day, did the search on his house. That was October 14th. So she received something on October 14th, 2022. So I'm going to assume that she received some guns or firearms found in Richard Allen's house. One of them was a 314 was a Sig Sauer model P226 40 caliber Smith & Wesson pistol. And then she receives one Blazer 40 Smith & Wesson cartridge, a 315, one Winchester 40 Smith & Wesson cartridge. She receives 2 magazines, and one magazine containing 8 cartridges, and another magazine containing all this stuff, right? Again, assuming this is all from Richard Allen's house. Well, she says that she shows us a bunch of photos. They're all microscopic. She shows us again item 16. That's what I showed you my little drawing of. She says that she was able to identify item 314 as cycling item 16. So that was an important moment in court this morning, that none of the other guns had worked. None of the other firearms had worked with this item 16 bullet. Again, I think item 16 is the bullet found at the crime scene. None of them worked. But she was able to identify finally in 2022 that item 314, let me read you what item 314 is again. It was given to her on October 14th, 2022, a Sig Sauer model P226 40 Smith & Wesson 40 caliber, Smith & Wesson pistol. That, she says, she was able to identify as cycling item 16, that bullet, I believe, found at the crime scene. So she shows a bunch of photos. She's showing all these crazy microscopic looking marks and edges, the different area of the injector or the ejection. Like, honestly, it's hard for me to understand these microscopic tool markings. But I see markings that she has circled. It's getting interesting in there. On and on and on. I think that that's where we are right now at lunch. Honestly, I think the biggest bombshell right now, pre-lunch, is that she was able to identify item 314, a firearm that I assume is found from Richard Allen's house, a cycling, item 16, the cartridge I assume was found at the crime scene. So that is where we are. We have not heard any cross. So I don't know if they're going to come back with some pretty damning cross and they're going to sort of minimize what Melissa says, right? I don't know. All we have heard from is the prosecution. It's Luttrell today leading the questioning with Melissa. She is very professional. She says that she has actually testified at over 100 trials and that she has assessed thousands and thousands of firearms over her career. So she's clearly a veteran in this area of expertise, and she certainly seems to show that. She's very professional in court. So I'm going to be very interested in what happens next, what Cross has to say, and also I'm really interested to find out, like, if they're ever going to say, by the way, this is the bullet that was found at the crime scene. By the way, this was the gun found in Richard Allen's house. It's interesting because her being an expert witness and doing what she does, she's not part of necessarily the investigation. I'm wondering if she can't say that. And then I guess if the prosecution states, by the way, jury, this is this bullet and this is this gun, maybe he's testifying and he needs the expert witness to testify. I don't know. But unless you're paying attention, it can be kind of confusing about what is happening in there. So there you go. Oh yeah, great question, Eric. There was a chain of custody of the bullet found. They have stated that there has been a chain of custody. They've talked about how many times it was open. And she also explained that all DNA and all fingerprints on all of these items had to be done before she received it, because she calls herself essentially like a DNA killer. Like, her work and her expertise doesn't help DNA or fingerprints left on items. So that all had to be done prior to her receiving that chain of custody. So yeah, that was interesting too. Let me just see if anybody else has any other. Thank you, Troublemaker Baker. I appreciate it. This case brings out some trolls, doesn't it? This case. So thank you, Troublemaker. I'm not even seeing them, so you're clearly doing a great job. Let me just see if there's anything else. All right, so there you go. I think we're good. That is what's going on in court today, and we better head back before it gets too late. Lunch is only so long, so I'm gonna take off, and I'll see you guys all later tonight with the latest. I think, again, the cross is certainly going to be interesting, because just remember, every day on cross exam, the defense is trying to minimize this bullet found at the crime scene. Like, every day, even when it's not even being testified about it. Like, they're like throwing in this bullet and how it was handled improperly, on and on and on. So I imagine that cross is going to get feisty. They're going to do everything they can to minimize Melissa Oberg's testimony. So to be continued. I think post lunch, it's just going to be a really interesting day, because they really have to nail down Richard Allen's gun being connected to this bullet found at the crime scene. So stay tuned. Thank you, everyone, for your support today. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys soon. All right. Bye-bye.